Long before the majestic pyramids and the legendary reign of the pharaohs, Egypt was a land of humble beginnings. The story of ancient Egypt doesn't start with kings or monumental architecture. It begins with the simple act of farming along the Nile. In this video, we'll take you back over 8,000 years to a time when small, scattered communities first learned to harness the fertile lands of the Nile Valley. These early agricultural societies didn't just cultivate crops. They laid the groundwork for what would become one of history's greatest civilizations. Imagine a world where survival depended on the annual floods of the Nile, where early Egyptians had to innovate, adapt, and cooperate to make the most of their environment. From planting the first seeds to establishing permanent settlements, these pioneers of agriculture transformed the Nile's banks into thriving villages. They sowed the seeds of social order, craftsmanship, and even the first inklings of spiritual beliefs, all of which would later flourish into the grandeur of ancient Egypt. Join us as we explore the roots of Egyptian civilization, discovering how these early farmers set the stage for everything that followed. This is the untold story of Egypt's origins, where the journey from simple farming to the rise of a mighty empire began. Long before the rise of the pharaohs and the construction of the Grand Pyramids, Egypt was a land of small, emerging communities. These early societies were deeply connected to the Nile, which provided the lifeblood necessary for survival and growth. The story of Egypt's agricultural beginnings is a tale of adaptation, innovation, and the gradual shift from nomadic lifestyles to settled farming communities. Around 6000 BCE, the inhabitants of the Nile Valley began to make significant changes in their way of life. Instead of relying solely on hunting and gathering, they started to cultivate crops such as wheat and barley. This shift marked the dawn of agriculture in Egypt. The fertile land along the Nile, enriched by the river's annual floods, made it an ideal location for farming. These early agricultural communities led to the establishment of permanent settlements. Villages began to appear along the Nile, where people lived in simple mud brick houses. The development of these villages was a critical step in the social evolution of ancient Egypt. As the population grew, so did the need for more organized forms of cooperation and leadership. With agriculture as the backbone of society, there was a need for specialized skills. This period saw the rise of artisans and craftsmen who produced tools, pottery, and other essential items. Pottery, in particular, became a significant craft, with early Egyptians creating beautifully decorated pieces that reflected their growing cultural complexity. Alongside these developments, early religious beliefs began to take shape. The Nile was revered as a divine force, and rituals were performed to ensure the continuation of its life-giving floods. As the sun sets on this chapter of Egypt's history, we leave behind the early farmers and their thriving communities along the Nile. These pioneers laid the very foundation upon which a civilization would rise, one that would astonish the world with its achievements in art, architecture, and governance. But the story doesn't end here.